Hey, yeah, what's up? This disciple Marshall Occurrence reign back up in this anti-Illuminati all day, anti-America all day. Yeah, so this video basically is gonna be about how do we define 44 states with child marriage activity? Is it pedophile or not? Is it pedophile or not? That's what it's coming down to. That's what I want to talk about in this video. Is how do we define? How do we define this now? We're talking about defining this. Stay with me. We're not just talking about the law now. We go into different, as far as the law, this whole campaign that I'm doing, it's about hitting different dynamics. Okay? You're aware of the law. Now we're going to break it. We're going to get to different satellites around the law, different dynamics of this situation, right? So now I'm asking, how do we define 44 states with child marriage activity? How do we define it? Is it marriage? This is marriage now. A fully grown man with a child. That's marriage. So it's not marriage. So how do we define this? How do we define what is the definitions of this marrying of children in 44 states? What is this activity? How do we define 44 states with child marriage activity? How do we define the activity? How do we define 44 states with child marriage as far as activity? How do we define that activity? What is the activity? How do we define the activity? What's the definition of the activity? Well, the definitions of the activity, or the technicalities of the activity, is a man or a woman with a child. That's the activity. That part. That's the activity, bottom line. And there's no way in the world you can tell me that that's not pedophilia. So if the definition basically, or the essence of the activity, is an adult with a child in a marriage, and the essence of that activity is not a marriage, because an adult cannot have a relationship or a marriage with a child because they don't have anything compatible. So the basis of the relationship is sexual activity, which an adult being with a child, as far as sexual activity, is pedophilia. That's the end of the video right there. That's the end of the video. I just summed it up. That's the bottom line. It's defined by this activity, this sexual activity of an adult with a child. That's cutting through all this marriage stuff. When you know, like I know, it ain't a marriage. It's not a marriage. A marriage consists of more than just sex. We all know that. A marriage consists of compatibility, emotional compatibility, intellectual compatibility, all different types of, sharing our lives with each other. How you sharing your life with a child? Come on, man. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And yet you got 44 states with child marriage. Man, it's pretty ridiculous when you really think about it. It's very, very ridiculous, bro. Word. It's ridiculous. But yeah, here we are. Yeah, here we are. And we ain't acting like it don't exist. We ain't gonna play that role. We ain't gonna play that role, buddy. It does exist. It does exist, right? It's not Santa Claus. It's not here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus. No, I ain't none of that, bro. Now, these 44 state marrying children laws are real. This ain't here comes Santa Claus, buddy. They're real. You can Google them. You can look them up. They're real. They exist. And I know it's surreal, but it's real. I know it's unbelievable, but however, it's still real. Okay? And I'm asking you in this video, what is the definition of this? What is the definition of this activity that's of this child marriage? How do we define the activity thereof? You know, how do we define this? Because it's not a marriage. We established that. You know, you got to have compatibility. You got to have all these things that makes up a marriage. You know what I mean? It takes work in a real marriage. You know, and because you're with a human being, an adult human being. And it takes a lot of communication, patience, all these things. See, that's how you know it's something mature. Marriage is mature. So how's a child in a mature situation like that? You know what I'm saying? Really think about this. So it's not a marriage, technically speaking. No, there's no way it can be. Because a child cannot meet the requirements that is necessary for a marriage. A child cannot meet the requirements, right? Intellectually, as far as companionship, sharing your life, you know, same desires. You know, a child does not have adult likes and desires. Like as far as like what they want to watch on TV, things like that. Like those type of, you know, vacation spots and things like that, bro. Man, come on, man. Stop playing with me, man. Stop playing with me. And you got 44 states with child marriage, and you can't even, out of a child, you can't even get the same vacation destination spot. Well, I'm pretty sure a child doesn't have the same vacation destination spot that you do. So your child want to go to the Bahamas. Your child in the child in the child marriage want to go to the Bahamas and go to a spa. She can't even fit in the beach chair, man. Hey, she can't even fit in the spa chairs, man. Come on, man. Stop playing with me, man. You can't take her to do adult things, man. You can't. So it's not a marriage, right? Let's establish that. So then the activity is not marriage activity. It's not marriage activity. It is only sexual activity, which an adult having sex with a child, that is pedophilia activity. If it's only sexual activity, then that is adult with a child activity, sexually speaking, which is pedophilia. That's what it is. That's what it is, bro. That's what it is, man. And I'm not sugarcoating it. It ain't nothing to talk about. This is how you gotta tell the president and this is how we gotta I'm going into the future in 2023, man. Like I want the president to answer these questions. What is 44 states doing marrying children? I want a straight shot answer. I don't want no, well, you know, the culture. You know how they talk. Well, let's talk about the culture. Well, the culture. Well, you know, the culture. Now, I don't want to hear none of that, bro. I don't want to hear none of that. Because at the end of the day, your culture is crazy about protecting these children. So you can't blame the culture. It's you. It's your American government that is doing things outside of the culture in the community. That's a 7. You doing things outside of the whole American community. 44 states with child marriage, bro, that's outside the whole American community. You can't blame the culture. You can't use that as an excuse, actually. It's outside of the culture and practices and customs of the American people. And this is by definition, man, it's pedophilia, bro. Pedophilia is written all over this. They dress it up as child marriage to make it look good. Now, I concluded that very early. It's all to make it look good. So it don't make them liable. Well, they're marrying the child. It's not like they're just having sex with the child. They are marrying the child. It is doing the right thing. It's not doing the right thing because the child is not even capable of a wedlock. It's not even healthy for them. That's a 7. How is a marriage healthy for a child when a child wants to go outside and play in a sandbox? When a child wants to go out and be a kid, that part. Yeah, you call it child marriage, it's kid marriage. See how that sounds? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And all it is a way of camouflaging the fact that they can take a child home and have sex with the child for the rest of their life. That's all it is. It's a pet. The child becomes a pet. In rare cases, the child may become groomed and become a normal, almost normal human being or citizen or American citizen. But for the most part, man, that person is going to be weird, man. Weird, weird, weird. And everybody want to talk about who the weirdos are, but you got 44 states with child marriage, big baby. Boom. That ain't weird. That 44 states in America, out of 50 states now, leaving only 6 states. If it was 6 more states, it would be the whole country got child marriage, bro. That part. That's the wake-up call. 6 more states would be all 50 states. Man. And this is how you know it's pedophilia. Because of the last child marriage law. The last child marriage law was passed 3 years ago. So, okay, let's just say 44 states with child marriage was established a long time ago. And you could say, well, that's just culture. That's how, people felt like they could put a young girl in the marriage and all of that, right? That was our culture back in the past. So it wasn't pedophilia. It was just the way people thought that they could get a young girl and basically raise her up to be their wives. Okay. That would be, you might could argue that, and it wouldn't be, I wouldn't let you get away with it, but you could argue, you could throw it up as an argument years and decades ago, but you can't do it with the last child marriage law that was passed 3 years ago. You can't do it with that last child marriage law because, you can't say it's that mentality with the last child marriage law because you know how all the American community, how they believe, their customs, their how they feel. It's no way in the world you can justify it being done 3 years ago. Child marriage laws for Americans. Because the laws are for the citizens. It's for me and you. So if it's not our customs and it's not our beliefs and people are out here crazy for children, why would they pass laws for you to marry them, for you to have access? Make it make sense. Why would they do that? When it's not your beliefs and when it goes against your customs in your country, in America. So why would they pass laws for you to do it just now 3 years ago? I'm talking about now. 3 years ago, just now. So you can't, and you know it ain't the culture for somebody in America right now to get a little girl and have them cooking and cleaning and working for them. That part. Ain't no man saying, yeah, I want to get me a little girl so I can have her cook and clean around this house. There's nobody doing that, right? It's not the customs of the people. So you can't act like it's the mentality of men making a young woman labor and clean and cook for them as like, a caretaker basically. You can't act like it's a caretaker situation from back in the day because no one is using that format anymore. So it's not important enough if someone is doing it or someone thinks this way, it's not significant. It's not an amount of people that feel this way significantly enough for you to make laws for this to happen. That's a 7. It's not enough people feeling that children should be, a little girl should be laboring around cleaning and cooking and cleaning like back in the day, in the hundreds of years ago. There's no one thinking like this no more. So that's not the basis of why the law was passed, based on men feeling they need a young girl to be a caretaker around the house, kind of thing, like that, right? Because that's how they try to paint it in the past, when it was still pedophilia then. They were laying down together at the end of the night. What you think they was doing? It wasn't just no caretaker situation, buddy. But definitely we can say this last child marriage law passed 3 years ago definitely wasn't no caretaker situation, because ain't nobody thinking like using no girl as some maid to clean up and cook around the house. No one's thinking like that, because in actuality, females here in America, they're not groomed to clean and cook as the older generations did. And I'm not saying I agree with the past, but but 100 years ago, girls were doing way more work around the house. They were cooking and cleaning and everything. They were actually doing those things. Literally. These days, man, you barely can get a 20-year-old to do that. That part, let alone a girl, a baby, a kid. You can barely get 20 and 30-year-old women to clean and cook and clean around the house like they should. And listen, I'm not justifying in the past, because I feel like the perfect universal law is adults should be having sex with adults. Bottom line. That's just the wisest, discretional way about going about it. It just leaves no room for error. There's no room for error if you got 18 with 18 or 18 with 18 and up. There's no room for error. So this last law was passed 3 years ago, and like I said, no one here in America thinks about girls as like caretakers and cleaning up around the house, because this generation here, girls under 18, man, they're like almost like babies. You think they all, on the average, you think they know how to cook and clean? I don't think so. Which means that could not be the foundational purpose, which means this last law passed 3 years ago was about sex, which means it's pedophilia, because an adult having sex with a child is pedophilia. You tell me what it is. You tell me what else it is. And that's what I'm saying. How do we define 44 states with child marriage activity? Pedophilia or not? We know it's pedophilia because the last law was passed 3 years ago, and no one is seeing children in this present society as marriage material. No one in America is thinking about marrying a child, right? No man is out there saying, yeah, yeah, I want to marry me a little child. No normal American is thinking like this, right? No woman either. No woman is thinking, I want to marry me a boy that can't work or could never work or have no possibility to work or cannot even defend me. How will he defend you? He can't drive a car. I mean, some would even say, how does he even have sex with you? Even that part. How you even have sex with the child? And you know, that lets you know, it's all about it's pedophilia, man. It is. And it's in 44 states. That's the shocker. When that's the punchline, when I tell you like that, and then I tell you it's 44 states doing that, that's the punchline, bro. It ain't got nothing to do with no marriage. It ain't nothing but a child is dressed up like marriage as a title and term or whatever. But at the end of the day, our society does not want to be engaged or in wedlock with children in any form of fashion. You know, there's a big maturity gap between adults and children now than ever before. That's a 7. I hit it right there. That's how I need to be said, right there. It's a huge maturity gap. Back in the day, like I said, now the maturity gap was different because the parents raised the children to do things younger because they feel like they was teaching them responsibility. They were teaching them how to be, they were growing them up quick. They made children, they made use of their children. They utilized their children. But the maturity gap between adults and children back in the day was more closer because children were cooking, cleaning, and everything else. But now the maturity gap is further away to the point where it's like, how could you, with this huge maturity gap where the kids these days, even into their 20s, they can barely boil water. How can you feel the need to marry someone that can barely boil water? That's besides me. Which means it's only for sexuality, which means it's pedophilia. So we have to cut, I'm cutting through it all because they telling you marriage and you blinded by that. And I just showed you already throughout the video so far, it's not marriage. And the children of this generation are not nowhere near capable of being married to a grown man. The maturity gap is there. They don't cook and clean. Most American people start cooking and cleaning around their 20s. These days, they ain't doing that in no teenage years, like unless they have parents that are away from the house and things like that. But on the average, their parents are ordering pizza. Their parents are doing this, that. It's DoorDash now. They're not cooking. They're not doing it. which means children are not as mature as they used to be, so you can't find them attractive in a mature way enough for them to have 44 states with child marriage. So there's nothing that a man would say, she looks like she'll be a good wife. She cooks, she cleans. You ain't gonna see that in someone under 18, bruh. You barely see it in somebody that's 30. So how you gonna see it in somebody that's under 18? These days now, think about it. On the average now. Nah. It's no way, because with laws like this, you have to consider culture. You can't just slap up a child marriage law. So you had to consider the culture. The wise people, you agree with me? Wise people would have to have considered, well, let's look at the culture. Should we make another child marriage law? Let's look how the children are these days. They didn't do that, did they? That's the seventh. They didn't consider how the children were, how they're not cooking and cleaning anymore. None of that, bro. I'm talking about here in America. They didn't consider obviously none of that. And they just slapped up in the past 3 years, a year before COVID, 2019, a child marriage law passed July 1st, 2019 that allows adults to marry children at any age. At any age. It says no minimum age, right? That's what the law says, which means they can marry children at any age. That makes it even worse. That tells you it ain't got nothing to do with no marriage. At any age? How it got something to do with marriage when you can marry children at any age? Obviously not. Obviously not. That has nothing to do with nothing but sexuality, man. And here's the thing, man. Now, with that being said, how can they enforce sexual abuse laws against children when you're dressing up child marriage laws as marriage laws? And in actuality, you're saying it. The new law says that you can marry children at any age, which means it's not about marriage. Any age children ain't about marriage. But you're dressing it up like it is about marriage. And it's not when you're saying any age of child, which means obviously we can agree marriage ain't for every age of child, right? So why would you say any age of child? Marriage is not for any age of human beings. But you said no minimum age for the child, as far as the child goes. When marriage requires an age of that is responsible, accountable, mature, you can't just listen. Marriage is takes work, but yet you saying a child can be married at any age. That's the new law. Passed July 1st, 2019. That's what I'm trying to show you guys. It has nothing to do with marriage. It's nothing but a sex law. And how can we lock up people on the other side? When this is not about marriage, this law is not about marriage. It's about sex. So how can we lock somebody else up about sex with a child on the other side? Same thing. Both about sex. Ain't about marriage with the child marriage law. When it says any age, when we know it takes maturity to be married, it's all about sex. Because they say any age, which cancels out, it's about marriage, because marriage requires a certain age. So it's about sex. So how can we lock somebody else up for doing the same thing in essence? This is why I coined a term called a law of conflict. Law of conflict. A law of conflict is a law the definition I made of that basically lacks integrity. And this law lacks integrity so bad that it cancels out the integrity of laws that do have integrity and good character. So because this law of child marriage is so bad, it cancels out all these other child molestation and child sexual abuse laws. It cancels out all that. It cancels out all that, right? So I call it a law of conflict because the 44 states child marriage law, this activity is so bad that how can you enforce laws against R. Kelly and laws against Bill Cosby? Well, in R. Kelly case, how can you enforce laws against him? But then, in essence, children are doing the same thing in as far as activity in a child marriage law. So, because of the child marriage law being a law of conflict, it cancels out any laws of child molestation because it's too sharp of a contradiction. It's an absolute contradiction. So you got sex with children over here by law, but you're locking someone else up over here because of child sex, but you have child sex in the marriage. So the child sex marriage law is a law of conflict that cancels the law of integrity to lock people up to have sex with children. It cancels it out. It's a law of conflict that cancels out the laws that you do or you would have that would lock people up for having sex with children. You can't enforce them because in essence, you're doing the same, you have the same thing going in a child marriage law. So the child marriage law is what cancels out your ability in a law system to enforce child molestation charges against people. You can't enforce that because you're doing, in essence, your law system is your law system. That law system is allowing the same thing in essence. It's the same thing. It's a law of conflict. That's what I call it. It conflicts against your integrity and character that you have in another law. In all your child sex laws, 44 states marrying children is the laws of conflict that cancels out all your integrity of laws that protect children sexually speaking. Your 44 states with child marriage laws are nothing more than adults being with children sexually. It's not marriages because we all agree marriages between two mature parties, which couldn't be a child. So, in essence, it's child sex, just like what you're locking people up for. In you know, it's no way you can justify it. It's no way, no way. And the reason why you can't justify it is because the last one was passed 3 years ago. Now, you might have would have got away with it barely if this was years and decades ago when 44 states with child marriage was established. Okay, maybe the mentality was different back then, right? But how can you explain the last child marriage law being passed in 2019? That's where you lose right there. That's where you lost. That's where you lost. Because, like I said, your lawmakers should have sat down with culture advisors, people that advise them on the culture of the people. They not just making laws. You have to sit down, and in this case, you have to sit down with cultural advisors, people who have studied and went to school for culture and understand the culture that they live in, right? The American culture through and through. They're up to date on it. They're relevant. They're laser sharp on the relations between adults and children, to where they would be able to advise you whether this is a yes or a no, that this would be culturally acceptable, right? So so if they would have done this, they would have concluded that the American people are too nuts for anybody to even think about passing a child marriage law in 2019, just 3 years ago from now, from 2022, December 9th. That's now. This law was passed 3 years ago from now. They would have advised them that it would be law suicide to do something like this based on the culture and customs of the people of America. So explain to me why no one advised them about that. And these laws are real, but they passed them. They passed, in essence, they passed some type of child marriage law 3 years ago. That's all you need to know. That's the best way I can tell you. Without worrying about the technicalities of it, let's just look at the technicality of it. Make sense? Without worrying about what the details of the law is, let's look at the technicality of the fact that they passed a child marriage law just 3 years ago where people can marry children. Come on now. Let's look at that technicality. That's the technicality. Let's don't look at the technicalities of the law and the details of it. Let's just look at the fact that just 3 years ago, these people sat down and passed a law for people to marry children. Just 3 years ago. Without knowing how you can do it and all of that, because see, that's how they try to get you. That's how they try to do a Jedi mind trick. How they try to do a Jedi mind trick is to say, well, this is how it's done, and this is how you do it. I don't care how it's done. It's the fact that it's an option. This is how you avoid the Jedi mind trick. Because it only matters that it's an option for the American community to be able to do it. We are only concerned that it's an option to the people. We don't care how it's done. We don't care if parents come in and help with it being done. We don't care how it's done. How we sidestep the Jedi mind trick is it's an option in 2022 for people to marry children in 44 states in America. And the last child marriage law was passed 3 years ago when no one agrees with that in the American culture and customs. That's how we sidestep this Jedi mind trick foolishness. Because there's no way someone should even be trying to talk to you about it. People kill for children. Do you realize that? Not just in the jail system where people kill the pedophiles and rape the pedophiles in the jail system. That shows you right there. But not just that. Also, out here on the streets, people kill these pedophiles. Or people they assume that are pedophiles, right? So if that's the culture, that hasn't got back to the lawmakers? That hasn't got back to the lawmakers how prisoners in jail interact with pedophiles. That hasn't got back to the lawmakers to where you would think it's not a good idea in American culture to pass child marriage laws. You don't see how the people talk about pedophilia in movies or everyday people. See, you have to know the culture. You have to know the culture. You can't just slap out laws like this to a whole community. That part, and you don't even know like how this is going to be taken, how they're going to perceive you as a government. You have to worry about your integrity when it comes to something like this now. That part. But they didn't, though. And it makes you wonder. This was, like I said, this was just 3 years ago. For people that think these are old laws, I defeat that perspective with showing you they just passed one 3 years ago. So you can't say it's the old way of thinking. You can't say that. You don't have the luxury of or the sidestep or the luxury of the sidestep with that mentality. You can't do it. There's no excuse when the last one was passed 3 years ago, buddy. And my whole thing is this. Stop demonizing people. If you're doing this, and that's for the community too. It's for you too. We need you to stop, and I'm going to do a video on this too because that needs to be done next. You as the American community are liable too. I know you just thought it was the government. Nah, you too. You too, because you should be educated on this yourself. Why are you running around like John Wayne? I'm talking about the American community. You riding around like John Wayne, like you in the episode of Gunsmoke. Like you in the episode of Bonanza. For these children, totally ignorant as can be about your own country having 44 states with child marriage and passed the last child marriage law 3 years ago. So why are you riding around like John Wayne for it? And you know what? I'm sorry to tell you, that ignorance is fatality. That ignorance has proved fatal. Nah, because you can't say, well, we didn't know. Well, you should have been educated. Before you go out and try to be some type of law enforcement to enforce justice, right, or laws, you got to be educated. We can't let you get a pass just because you had good intentions. I can say I got good intentions and go outside and harass some innocent person, but that innocent person is going to want justice. After the harassment has ended, that innocent person is going to want justice, and probably justice in the form of monetary gain. Sorry isn't good enough, buddy. I'm sorry. If you go out and harass an innocent guy, thinking or suspecting that he's a pedophile, ignorant to your own laws in listen to this part, ignorant to your own laws in your country of marrying children. They're marrying children, but you ran outside after some guy. How could you do it when your country is marrying children in 44 states? And they passed a last child marriage law 3 years ago. How could you walk around like that? And also the age of consent under 18 in 40 states. So with all of those laws, how could you find yourself in your right conscience to go after the community when you should be going after the government? You should be going after them first. Yeah, because here's the punchline. While you out here trying to go after singular pedophiles, you have a whole country doing it by law. They're doing it by law. So what do you look like running around after some guy Right. In the community with all these laws, you look like a kid at play. That's what you look like. I'm just telling you the truth. You look like a kid at play. No pun intended. You look like a kid at play when you got 44 states with child marriage. But you running after some guy or woman that you suspect to be a pedophile. You look like a child at play when your whole government is doing it. And I'm sorry to tell you, that makes you liable as an American community. You shouldn't be playing in lanes that you ain't educated in. Yeah, you look, you liable for that. I don't care if your intentions were good. I can say my intentions were good going out here running outside right now while I'm on this video and pointing and going and finding the first person I see outside and saying, yeah, we heard you're a pedophile. If I'm wrong about that, guess what that means? I am liable, and that person is going to want justice, whether I had good intentions or not. I could do, in other words, we could all go out and do that. Talking about we got good intentions and we want to protect children. I could go say that. Who cares? You think that guy's going to care that you had good intentions about children and you went and accused him of something you didn't see him do and it wasn't in the context that you were told? You think he cares about you? You think he cares about you having loving children? He could care less, actually, probably bitter about the whole children altogether. Because if you accusing them, probably don't want to see one child, actually. And you know what? In me being a wholesome judge of things, I would have to punish the person that did that ran out thinking they're catching a pedophile. I don't care if you had good intentions. I don't care if you love the children. You put an innocent person's life and livelihood in harm's way. Anybody could have did anything to him. What if somebody just say, you know what, I'm just going to kill this person. They keep saying he's a pedophile. They keep saying she's a pedophile. I'm going to shoot this person. I'm going to kill this person. I'm going to stab. I'm going to do something to this person. And the person is innocent. You deserve to die then. In my opinion, a life for a life. A life for a life. If you ruin somebody's life or you put that person in harm's way where they could have died, I think you deserve to get money, give them a big lump sum of money or forfeit your life, man, because that person could have died, bruh. If you spread something like that and you don't have absolute definitions on and because a pedophile is this, an adult that has sex with a child or sexual desire for a child. If that person didn't produce those results of being an adult with a child, we got to scratch out the pedophile definition right off the tops. We got to. That's what it is. And if you go around saying that and the person was a child that did things with other children as a child years ago, you can't say that's a pedophile. A pedophile is someone that is an adult first. That's the first thing you establish. And the other party is also an adult. I mean, a child is not an adult. So in order for it to be a pedophile situation, one party has to be an adult and one party has to be a child, for sure. Bottom line. And that's the only way you can put that definition in that situation. And so, unfortunately, man, People think they can do stuff like that and then say, well, here's what they do. Well, I had good intentions. I feel like we don't care. I don't care about your intentions. I personally don't care. I feel like we need to get rid of people like you just as bad. Because who knows who's this going to happen to next? Who knows if this is going to happen again? The only way we know this is to get rid of the likes of people who do this and to make them suffer to a degree that it won't happen. Not, oh, just a little scrap on the wrist because you meant well. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you meant well. Meaning well put you in a bad situation. Now, what did that tell you? That you're ignorant. When you mean well and you wind up still being liable, that means you're ignorant. Well, if you meant well, how come you didn't bring about a well situation? That means you were ignorant. Oh yeah, that's what it means. You were ignorant. We have to establish this because there's people out here that think they can get away on being having good intentions, and we just wanted to protect our community. Well, we all want to do that. We all could say that. But you can't run out here like John Wayne and you out here with 44 states in your country marrying children. And the last law was passed 3 years ago for child marriage. You can't be running out here like John Wayne, bruh. What's wrong with you? Are you aware of your reality, of your country? And that's what makes you liable. See, the difference is in other countries, because you'll say, well, other countries have laws. You want me to tell you what the difference is? They're not out here like John Wayne, like you are. They not out here. Other countries are educated, way more educated than us. So they know the laws of, especially when it comes to a girl coming of age. You don't even know what happens here in America when the girl comes of age by law. What the situation is. They do. In other countries, can you imagine it? It's easy to imagine other countries knowing when a girl comes of age, what age she can do this, that, and the third. In other countries, it can easily be understood. You can easily understand that they know this. They probably know this. In your country, in America, when girls come of age, you don't even know. You don't even know what the laws are. For when they come of age to where they are adults and they interact with adults, you don't know what the laws are. But yet here you are out here. Now you see what I'm saying? You're out here, though, acting like everybody's having sex with 18-year-olds. That's what makes you liable. That's what makes everybody hold you liable right now. That's what makes it a fatal cocktail for you. Because you're out here like John Wayne, totally ignorant, oblivious to what your country got going on. Like as if that don't exist. I know you would try to wish it away and like to wish it away, but it does exist. Right now, right here. The difference, like I said, as far as other countries, they're not out there. They're not out there in these other countries running around when they know their own laws. What sense would that make? That part, that's what I'm saying. How could you enforce anything when people in actuality are sexually interacting with children? And how could you enforce anything? How could you be out here on any of that when literally someone that is an adult is having sex with children? How could you? I don't care what age the child is. I'm looking at the technicality of an adult with a child. How could you be out here then? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to articulate. How could you be out here when you know that's going on. And that's what I'm saying. And so with that being said, that makes you liable, man. That makes you have to pay. You know what I'm saying? And listen, ain't no other country doing that because they know that's what they doing. They know that they are with children. So they're not out here like they don't know that. Like, look what you doing. Right. Knowing what they laws are, right? You so ignorant, you out here talking about, look what you doing. Got 44 states with child marriage over here. Man, these McDonald's biscuit eating bastards don't even know what their laws are. These McDonald's biscuit eating bastards don't even know what their laws are, man. It's ridiculous, bro. Like, it's for real, man. And like, man, listen, man. If you listen, you don't think God understands this? Oh, you think God understands? You just passed a child marriage law 3 years ago. When no one agrees with child marriage here, it's a sin to you. It is, because it violates your conscience. It violates the conscience of your culture and community. So it's people here that agree with that. Culturally speaking. No one does. Community-wise. Someone agrees with this in the community, for the most part. So they don't. So it violates the culture. It violates the conscience of the community. It violates the conscience of the culture, which means it's a sin to you, which means it's a violation. It's a sin. It's wrong. God sees it as one of your wrongs. If you violate your own conscience, you don't think that's sin? You violated your own conscience by law, but then ripped and run down the street playing with people at the same time. Right? But your government violated its own, the conscience of the culture and the people and the community. Meanwhile, you ain't even know it. Through the 44 states with child marriage, through the last law passed 3 years ago, they had already violated the conscience of the people by making these laws. But yet here you are running around everybody. And you don't think God look at it like that? Which means it's sin to somebody among you. Somebody done sinned, basically in essence. Somebody done sinned, bro. Because these laws are violates the conscience of the people, of the culture of America. And then you came out here running around, like I said, like John Wayne, like you in an episode of Bonanza. Like you just know your country don't put up with none of that. Well, they putting up with it with 44 states with child marriage. They putting up with it there. They putting up with it with this last law made 3 years ago, passed 3 years ago. July 1st, 2019 allowed adults to marry children at any age. They putting up with it there. You just didn't know the real America. You just didn't know the real America. And I don't know what to tell you. All I know, this is real. That's all I can tell you. And while you testing me and still playing games, God about to destroy a lot of people. Because you know what's going on. You know this and you still think it's a game. Like, it's like you still got rights to do something. You don't got rights to do nothing. You don't get that part? Do I need to say it in plain English? You have no rights to do anything concerning children, in my opinion. How can you say you do when you're marrying children? And the last law was passed 3 years ago. So you got right to do what? In the right conscience, in right judgment and justice, or right judgment. Well, justice too, yeah. You got rights to do what concerning children? When the same things are happening to them in child marriage, as far as activity, sexual activity between an adult and a child is happening in child marriage, but yet you go and incarcerate another guy or persecute other people throughout your community. It does. Listen, man. Listen. Ain't nobody in the world going for that. Ain't nobody with a brain in their head going for that. And that's what you need to realize. You can't pull no wool over my eyes. A child marriage law ain't nothing but pedophilia. How is it a marriage? You got a hubby that's underage. Your wifey is underage. You got an underage wifey. Man, you tripping, bro. You tripping hard. You tripping hard if you think I'm going to believe that. And you're going to sit up here and deceive me when I know that's nothing but people being able to pick who they want, a child, and have sex with them for the rest of their life. That's what it is. It's sex for the rest of your life, not marriage for the rest of your life. Not being married to someone for the rest of your life. It's sex for the rest of their life with a child. That's worse than pedophilia. Well, a pedophile doing random acts can't compare to someone that takes a child and marries them. And they're doing consistent pedophile acts every day. Compare a child marriage, sexual activity with a child, with some random acts that a pedophile does in your community. It's uncomparable. It's not even comparable. That person is going to do hundreds and hundreds of thousands of even millions of sexual acts throughout the child marriage. And and at the end of the day, it is an adult. It is an adult with a child. That's what it is. And you can sugarcoat it, you can dress it up, you can do whatever, however you want to put it. You can say however you want to say it. At the end of the day, that's what it is. And, you know, I don't see how you can lay down in your right conscience playing with one man. Playing with people in your community. But you got that going on in full blast, bro. Full blast. 44 states, that's full blast. And that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And that's where you have your problem. And you may feel like you're able to just wash your way out of this. And just wash your way out of this situation as if it never happened. But God ain't going to let you slide like that, bro. Nah, you put too much effort into that. You put too much effort into playing with somebody else when your actual government, not wayward people in your community, not, people among you, your government is marrying children in 44 states. And here you are, like the big bad wolf, or whatever, the big bad big dog that thinks you're going to protect children, and your government is marrying children. It's the same activity. It's the same activity of pedophilia. And my whole thing is this. If you got those laws, then you need to leave people alone. That's all you can do. Because other countries are not doing that. They have the laws. And guess what? No one is bothered because they know that they can't do that in a right conscience when they're doing it by law. You're doing it by law, but out here with your conscience, I don't see how you have a conscience. Picking up the R. Kellys of the world, picking up all these other people. When here you are with 44 states with child marriage, I don't see how you can do it. I don't see how you can sleep with yourself. When your government is doing it. Your government, man. You can't be serious, bro. Listen, man. There's no way in the world you can sit up and feed me that foolishness. Okay? You can't use any Jedi mind tricks with a man like me. I'm above the Jedi. If there is a Jedi, I'm above it. You got three forces. The dark side, the Jedi, and the body of Christ. The Jedi, the dark side, and Christians. Yeah, it's three forces. You got good people, bad people, and Christians. Good people and Christians are not the same thing, buddy. And that goes for all the heroes in the world and the heroes in America. You know, all the military and the police. You're a good cop or you're a good soldier, but you're not a Christian. Wait, hey, we fight different forces at the end of the day. If you want to talk, if you want to go beyond the morals of the situation, we can go to the fighting of the situation, and we fight different forces. We fight higher forces than you fight as a good cop. Okay? Well, is the cops telling your country about their moral state? Is the good soldiers telling you about 44 states with child marriage? Then off the strength of that, we're fighting against right there. We're fighting forces that they're not fighting. So how are we one and the same? How's the Jedi and I one and the same? When they're not talking about 44 states with child marriage, is the Jedi of your community talking about it? They're not, are they? That's what I'm saying. And that's why we turn to, we're still good, I'm still good, but I turn to a Darth Vader concerning your country. Because the Jedi was out here in your community marrying children. But out here like John Wayne, like I don't know that they're doing that. Like I don't know that they're doing that. Like I'm stupid. Out here like John Wayne call themselves catching pedophiles. Right? With 44 states with child marriage. How can you not be a Darth Vader? How can you not? How can Anakin not turn to Darth Vader? How can he not? Concerning being with your country on the side of your country, in that sense, how can Anakin not turn to Darth Vader in that situation? Because you're out here playing with people. And especially if you play with an Anakin. That part. Especially if you play with an Anakin acting like he's the pedophile. And then the Anakin finds out you got 44 states with child marriage. He's turning into Darth Vader all day. He's turning into Darth Vader all day, bro. All day. All day. Think about it. Anakin finds out you attack Anakin. Use all type of forces of psychological pedophilia images against his mind, psychological pedophilia operations out in public. And then Anakin finds out you're marrying children in 44 states. And you got the world record for the lowest age of consent worldwide. And you got the age of consent under 18 in 40 states. And you just passed your last child marriage law July 1st, 2019, 3 years ago. How can Anakin stay Anakin? He feels like the Jedi was one big lie. Like the Americans were one big lie. They just lied to us. They still passed these laws just 3 years ago. But yet they're riding around, like I said, like John Wayne. Like they're so pure and holy. And look at all these commercials and things they show you on TV. Look at all the things they show you. Like they just love children, children eating pizza with the family. Meanwhile, they have 44 states with child marriage. Now you see how easy it is for people to give up hope in the Jedi of your country. They may have faith in the Jedi in another country, but the Jedi in America, you no longer have the credibility that you once had with people that know this information. And that's the situation that you created that we have nothing to do with. We have nothing to do with that. I have nothing to do with that. That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing. You can't blame me. You can't blame witchcraft. You can't blame God. You can't blame the devil. You can only blame you. You're lawmakers, for crying out loud. How can you? Who are you going to blame? A Jedi mind trick from the devil? Oh, the devil gave you a Jedi mind trick. Somehow he learned the ways of the Jedi and gave you a Jedi mind trick, huh? Somehow the devil learned the ways of the Jedi and gave you a mind trick to pass 44 states and tricked your mind for you to do 44 states with child marriage. That's why it's three forces. You think you're on my side and you're not. If you was on my side, you would have already done this. Why do it take Christians to do it? Why couldn't the Jedi do it? You know why the Jedi couldn't do it? Because they were the ones passing the laws. The Jedi was the ones passing the laws. How are they going to do it? In other words, just like the Bible says, a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. Another thing the Bible says, you can't serve two masters. You can't be two things in this situation. What we find out is that you're the pedophiles. In other words, you're the Sith. If we're talking in the world of Star Wars, if we're talking in the world of Star Wars, you would be the Sith. Because you've been going around like you're trying to find these villains, and Anakin found you out to be the Sith. You got 44 states with child marriage, buddy. You're not the Sith that we've been looking for? Well, they've been looking for everybody. They've been looking for pedophilia in everybody, right? But we found that the American government is the Sith. You got 44 states with child marriage. So what should we do with the Sith? Just let them be. Now you see what I'm saying when I put it in this illustration. We should just let them be. Well, when has that ever worked in a Star Wars movie? Just letting the Sith be, huh? Just let the Sith be, and it'll work out. I don't think so. If they had the balls to pass these laws, you think they just gonna just go away? And they just passed the last law 3 years ago. You think the Sith is just going to take their circus and go home? Because they are clowns. And then you see why you have the true Christians become the Darth Vaders. Because it's in a sense of turning on your community. Because we don't listen, and we don't even have to talk about the gay issue. Look at this. What do you say in this case? Okay, you may say, well, you gotta love the gay people and pray for them. Okay, what do we do in this situation though? What do we do in this situation where they have 44 states with child marriage? They passed their last child marriage law 3 years ago. Just 3 years ago. What do we do in this situation? We just pray for them? We just pray for them. So what do? We just wait for it to get better. We just wait for the Sith to somehow work it all out. With 44 states of child marriage, we just wait for them to work it out. You see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? And that's why you can't judge people who oppose all the time. Sometimes, it's legitimate. You just didn't realize it was this bad. And you have one or two decisions. You have one or two options. You can either go with the Sith or you can go with the Christians. Because now the Jedi, you are in danger of being tainted because really in actuality you are. All right, you're just as dumb as the Sith. You might as well be them. You're just as dumb as them. So it only leaves us like it should be in the Force. The Christians telling you everything, telling you the truth about your country. The Jedi didn't tell you, did they? The military didn't tell you, did they? Did your government tell you? Of course they didn't tell you. They didn't want to pass the laws. Joe Biden didn't tell you, did he? Kamala Harris, she was a prosecutor that helped children. How come she didn't go in the White House and realize these laws? How come she wasn't inclined to do it? Inclined to study the laws concerning child, everything. All the child laws. Why she don't know them? Why hasn't she said anything about it being a former prosecutor? If she does know it. Why hasn't she advocated publicly to us? That's important because we know these things, so we want to know if you know. We want to know if you're going to try to do, if you're going to do something about it, and you saying something publicly could influence the people. So you can say, well, I knew, but you ain't publicly influenced the people concerning this situation to turn against this situation. So you see what I'm saying? It makes you wonder, don't it? So you can't trust the Jedi, so-called Jedi. They do all type of Jedi mind tricks. They're probably doing them on you now. Because they're aware that this information is out. They're aware that we know this. So you should ask yourself, what kind of Jedi mind trick are they doing on you? Or, on the next man? It ain't working on me. It's not working. And once again, it's been the Christians that has helped your community. And I know you give us bad raps. You may hate us. You may dislike us. You may feel all types of ways about us. But at the end of the day, it's the Christians that have come to reveal this to your community, not the Jedi. There's three different forces. You got the dark side, the Jedi, and the Christians. The Jedi did not reveal this to you. In fact, the Jedi, the good people in government, supposed to be good people, are the ones that put these laws into action. Some would say the Jedi are the one passed these laws. But I'm not the Sith. But who else passed the laws? Did the dark side do it? Well, it gets tricky, I guess, right there, doesn't it? Because the next question is, well, did the dark side take over the government? Or did the Jedi do this to your government? In either situation, your government is either ran by Jedi who passed these laws or dark side who passed these laws. Which one you want to pick? Did the Jedi pass the laws or did the dark side pass the laws? Either way, the system that has projected 44 states with child marriage has to go, whether Jedi did it or dark side did it. I say it's a little combination of both. But you can't say it's us, the Christians, can you? And now you see why we have the problems that we have with your community. Because they go out here and they paint these pictures like they so love the children. Like they're so in love with children, which is almost like a Jedi mind trick, almost even in itself. But here we are, December 9th, 2022, in a place where your community is completely oblivious that that the Jedi has child marriage laws. Oh, and if you don't believe the Jedi is a part of this perspective, then what about the UCMJ program in the military where adults, the age of consent is 16 in the military? For all servicemen in the American military, which would be considered the Jedi, right? That would be the center, the nucleus of the Jedi, right? Well, the nucleus of the Jedi has the age of consent in their community at 16 years old, which means all military of the American military can have sex with 16-year-old vagina. 16-year-old vagina is the vagina of children. You know that, right? Either you have the vagina of a child or the vagina of an adult. Right? It's no hybrid vaginas. You have either the vagina of a child or the vagina of an adult. So why would the military, which is supposed to be the most upstanding as far as integrity and character, why would they have the age of consent at 16 when New York City doesn't even have that? New York City has the age of consent at 17. Now you see what I'm doing? I'm your real Anakin while everybody else is playing games. And I had to Darth Vader because what am I supposed to do in this situation? They playing games with me. They playing games with other people. But we find out even in the military, the age of consent is 16. And in New York State, it's 17. So the New York State is doing better than your military. I'm not saying they're any better, but they're doing a notch better than the military. And so now you see it's almost like it's this delicacy privilege to be with children in your community. But meanwhile, they're out here like John Wayne playing around people. Now you see what I'm saying. And now you see why I feel after all they've done to me and other people, that I deserve a monetary gain from the situation. And you shouldn't care what happens to you. If you're a child and you think like a child, then you're going to say, well, we're going to die anyway, so I ain't doing nothing. Well, that's how a child would think. But if you are a man, you die like a man. You die like a man. You pay the money that you owe, you make your wrongs right, and you die like a man. Or you die like a boy with 44 states with child marriage, running around in your Tonka toys like you doing something out here and you ain't. And now you done made Anakin turn totally on you, and the likes of the Anakins turn totally on you, and it ain't no turning back. Until that system that has contradicted itself in the community that has contradicted itself, that their system falls. It ain't no more talking. That has to go. Because your culture contradicted itself according to its system. You see the problem? So what happens? Does the whole country fall, or what happens? What do we do to the people? What do we do to the system? Because your community has made you liable as well. They went out here too, playing games, and that puts more pressure on this system to resign as a likeness and a brand. We don't need you to pass any more laws. Don't you get it? We don't need you to pass any more laws. You've done enough damage. And that's how you put it. Close your book. We don't need you to make it better. You've done enough. We want you to resign. You're marrying children. It's over. Simple. This is how you put it to them. This is the revolution. Because most good politicians in military and police, I believe they will be on our side. There's not anybody going to say, well, yeah, we want that 44 states with child marriage. Everyone is going to be on our side. All we have to do is push the truth in the right direction. Get these. You see how lazy these politicians are? Now you see how lazy they are. They better not ever say I'm lazy. They're so lazy, they got 44 states with child marriage and nobody knows about it. They don't even know about it. Now that's lazy. And that goes for your community too. Your community is so lazy, they run around like John Wayne in a Bonanza episode trying to catch pedophiles, witch hunting pedophiles, and got 44 states with child marriage. That's how lazy you are. That you didn't even know your own laws, man. You didn't even take the time to find them out before you rode around like John Wayne. It ain't no mercy. You're grown. You're a grown person. You're grown. You should have knew what you was doing. I don't go out here trying to be law enforcement without knowing what laws to enforce. In order to enforce laws, you have to know what laws to enforce. You thought you would run around here like wild savages playing with me, I guess. And you found out you slipping. That part. And unfortunately, it's to your demise. I'm not going to let white entitlement or black entitlement hold back justice being done to you. Because you got white entitlement and black entitlement. I can't let you ride or slide on either one, man. You know, this 44 states with child marriage by definition, by activity, defining the activity is pedophilia. It's not a marriage. A child can't be married to an adult, and a child cannot be